This video is about multiplying and dividing positive and negative integers. When we look at multiplying and dividing integers, there are two steps that we need to do to determine the answer. The first step is that we complete the calculation from left to right as needed. And when I say as needed, that means we still need to attend to the order of operations, such as looking at brackets, powers, addition and subtraction. When I talk about left to right, I mean when we're only looking at multiplication and division. So you just complete that number fact as normal. Once you've arrived at your numerical answer, you then need to determine the sign for that answer. Once you've arrived at your numerical answer, you can then determine the sign by looking at the signs that you're starting with. If you have two positive numbers that are multiplied or divided together, then your answer will be positive. A plus and a plus is a plus. That's the same as every multifact that you've been doing since the beginning of primary school. There's nothing new there. A positive number times a positive number gives us a positive number. If you have a negative number that's multiplied by a positive number, or a positive number that's multiplied by a negative number, in both instances you end up with a negative number. The only one that's a little bit weird to remember is if you have two negative numbers multiplied or divided together, then the minus and the minus make a plus. So for two negative numbers being multiplied together, a minus and a minus make a plus. Now we're going to work through some examples. The first one that we're going to look at is 6 times 8. So I know that 6 times 8 is 48. I've got a positive number because there's an assumed positive there, and a positive number there because it's an assumed positive number. So a positive times a positive gives us a positive. It would be correct to both write positive 48 or to just write 48. Both of those are correct because remember, if there's no sign in front of a number, we assume that it's a positive according to the conventions of mathematical writing. In the next one, I have 2 times minus 3. So the first thing I do is the sum, which is 2 times 3 is 6. And then I look at my signs. I've got an assumed positive and I've got a negative. So a positive times a negative gives us a negative. So the answer to that is negative 6. For the next one, I have negative 4 times 5. So again, I do attend to the numbers first. So 4 times 5 is 20. And then I look at the signs. I've got a negative and an assumed positive. So that gives me negative 20. In the last one here, I've got 7 times 9, which will be 63. And then I look at the signs and I've got a negative in front of the 7 and a negative in front of the 9, and so that gives me a positive overall. So again, if it's a positive, I can write my answer as positive 63, or I can just write it as 63 without the positive in front, and we assume that that means positive. In these examples, we're going to look at division. And again, we follow the same format. Attend to the number fact first, and then attend to the sign. So in the case of 27 divided by 9, my answer is 3, and I've got assumed positives in front of all the numbers. So a positive and a positive is a positive. For my next example, I've got minus 30 divided by 10. So 30 divided by 10 would be 3, and I've got a negative in front of the 30 and assumed positive in front of the 10. So my answer would be negative. In the case of 45 divided by minus 9, I would do 45 divided by 9 would be 5. And I've got a positive in front of the 45 and a negative in front of the 9. So a positive and a negative will give me negative 5 overall. In the case of negative 60 divided by negative 12, I do the numbers first. So 60 divided by 12 will give me 5. And I've got a negative divided by a negative, which will give me a positive. Now we're going to look at some examples with a few more steps in them. Here we have two multiplications that we need to do, so we deal with them left to right. The first thing that we do is deal with the first step. So 2 times minus 3, 2 times 3 is 6, and we've got a positive times a negative, so that gives us a negative. We then write the rest of the sum that we haven't dealt with yet, which is this minus 4 part. We write that after our answer to the first part, which says we still need to deal with it. So we'll put times by 4, and then we'll deal with that on the next line. So we now have negative 6 times 4. 6 times 4 is 24, and we have a negative and an assumed positive, which gives us a negative. So our answer to 2 times negative 3 times 4 is negative 24. We do the same thing with our next one. We've got two multipliers, so we deal with the first one on the first line of our working out. So we have positive 8 times negative 3. 8 times 3 is 24, and a positive and a negative is a negative. And then we just write the rest of the line that we haven't dealt with. We write that here so that our working out is clear as to which part we're attending to on which line. So we still have to multiply that by negative 2. So on our next line, I'm dealing with 24 times 2. So the answer is 48. And I have a negative and a negative, which makes it a plus. So the answer to 8 times negative 3 times negative 2 is positive 48. Hopefully you found that helpful in learning how to multiply and divide positive and negative integers. If you need more help, remember the 4 B's. Firstly, use your brain. Have a think about what's there. Reread the question. Think about what you've learned before. Can you work out what you need to do by just thinking about the answer? Have a look in your book. That might mean having a look in your textbook, in the examples that are at the front of the exercise. That could mean having a look in your notebook. Have you written down some notes about this that could help? In this instance, it could mean re-watching the video. If you still need help after that, try asking your buddy. Ask someone else who's sitting next to you or someone else in your group if they can give you any advice. If you're not comfortable doing that, or if you can't find anyone, or if that's not helpful, then ask the boss. It's not really the boss, but I need another B word. So ask your teacher. Ask someone for help. That's what your teacher is there for. So if you need any more help, ask your teacher. Good luck.